Ever since MW2, there's been a lot of new settings added that a lot of people don't understand, or they just straight up do not make sense. So a lot of people just end up copy and pasting the first settings video they see and have no idea why they are using what they are using. So this video is here to help show you what all of this means. Let's get right into the settings. Start off with controller settings. If there's anything specific that you're looking for, by the way, the video is chapters, so you can skip to it. But for the first setting, we have button layouts. I use tactical, and what that does is switch your melee button with your slide button. I use it because it lets you slide cancel without moving your hand off the aiming button, so you can't get caught off guard. But button layout is really personal preference. You can just use whatever you want. It's not too big of a deal. Then next up for sensitivity, this is very, very preference-based, so use whatever you're the most comfortable with, but the best way to test what your sensitivity is by going into the firing range and flicking from like target to target. And then if you keep on like overshooting, then you're going to want to lower your sensitivity. But if you're like undershooting kind of, then you want to raise it. But the best range for it though is in between 1.5 to 2. If you need to go a little bit higher, it's not too big of a deal, but I wouldn't go any higher than that because it's just going to be uncontrollable past like 2. But then for the presets, I wouldn't use any of them. They all just make the settings worse, to be honest. There's no real reason to use them. It's way better just to find what you like the best. The next setting swaps your bumpers with your triggers, so you shoot with your bumpers and throw lethals and tacticals with your trigger. The setting is really good if you don't have mouse click triggers like with the scuff or anything, because you can shoot pistols way faster and they just take less time to react even while shooting normal guns. It'll take a little bit of time getting used to, but it's definitely worth it. But now for controller vibration, I personally have this off because I just don't like whatever I'm aiming with to be shaking harder than Ice Spice. But you know what? Personal preference. And then for the final setting in this category, we have dead zones. I use actually a very, very low left stick dead zone because if you don't know, any left stick movement activates rotational aim assist, and if you don't know what that is, it makes your aims just go from this to this. So I use the little stick drift that I have to activate it for me while I shoot. Also, I have the max pretty low because it puts me in tactical sprint a lot quicker. I have the right stick settings higher on both sides so I can have the most accuracy possible with it. The minimum you always want to be pretty low, and if you have any problems with stick drift at all, then you can just raise it to wherever you have to raise it for stick drift to stop. But the higher that you raise it, the longer that it would take to react to your button movements because you have to input more. So if you have to raise it anywhere above, like I would say 10, you're probably better off just getting a new controller, to be honest. Then for the triggers, I know a lot of you already probably have this at 0, but it defaults to, hold on, I don't want to reach the entire tab, but it defaults over to 13, which just takes longer to react. So I'll just put it at 0. Even if you're using that one bumper setting that lets you shoot with your bumpers, I would still set them to 0 just so you can throw your lethals and tacticals quicker, and it just feels a lot better. It's definitely noticeable, to be honest. But now for the aiming settings, first off, there's going to be sensitivity multiplier. I have everything at default here, just 1. Besides ADS sensitivity multiplier in specific, which is locked, which we'll come back to later. But next up, there is look inversion. This just inverts your controls. It's just like the invert setting in any other game. And if you don't know what inverted is, it makes it so if you move right, then it'll input like you're moving to the left on your stick. There's no real reason to use this, to be honest, unless you actually play inverted, but I have never met anyone that actually plays inverted. If you do, though, feel free to change this over to inverted. But next up, aiming advanced settings. First off, there's going to be look inversion. This is just the advanced version of the settings that I mentioned previously. You can make it so in third person it's only inverted, or only when you're moving ground vehicles it's inverted. I would still just keep all of these on standard, and it keeps on kicking me out of the menu. But I would just keep all these on standard. I don't really see a reason to switch them over to inverted unless you actually play inverted, like I said. But anyways, moving from inverted onto ADS sensitivity transition timing. I have mine on instant, so it will instantly go to my sensitivity multiplier. So the aiming, like how much I'm moving, isn't changing as I am ADS'd, if that makes sense. How this works is once you start moving your stick, it kind of like, it'll move slow at first, then it'll kind of like pick up speed, even if you're keeping it the same input, if that makes any sense. But if you use instant, it is always the same speed for the same like stick input at all times. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but that is the best I could explain it. Instant keeps your aiming constant, and gradual will gradually increase the speed of your aiming. But moving on to third person ADS correction type, honestly, I haven't seen anything in third person besides zombies, but assist is the best for this. I haven't really seen anything third person in this game, though, besides zombies, like I said. So this setting doesn't really matter too much. I wouldn't worry about it. But for aim response curve type, I use dynamic once again because it keeps your movement speed the same Standard kind of like it speeds up your ADS, how much you move along the way. Like it starts slow, and I mean, like it says, it's slow starting movement that speeds up over the aiming rate, and dynamic just keeps it the same for forever. But now back over to why the ADS sensitivity was locked. There's custom sensitivity per zoom. I have this on, and I have a different ADS sensitivity multiplier for every single type of zoom. So for my low zoom, I use 0.7, and this is the lowest out of all of them. It goes up the more zoom that there is, and the reason for that is in those longer range gunfights, I don't want to be stuck with that low sensitivity that is helpful in the short range gunfights, because I won't have to be moving my crosshair as much in short range. So that's how mine gradually going up. So like I said, in those long range gunfights, I can move more without having to be as slow, and I can also just track running better. But now for the rest of aiming, obviously you want aim assist on. I think that, yeah, ADS aim assist is only in campaign and zombies. Now for motion sensor, this defaults to off, and you are going to want to keep it there, because motion sensor is made for the PlayStation 5 gyroscope aiming. So if you're aiming with like the movement on your controller, so for example, if you don't know what gyroscope aiming is on a PlayStation, if you move your controller to the left, you're like, you move to the left, like the kind of the same input for your stick. So if you don't use that, and I definitely wouldn't recommend doing gyroscope aiming or whatever it's called, then I want to have this on. If you do, I guess you can turn it on, but gyroscope aiming is really bad. I wouldn't do it. Hurts your aim assist, and overall, it's just harder to do anything. But now I'm moving on to the movement category of things. All of the assists I have off. Mantle assist is going to get you killed in a lot of gunfights. It's going to make you mantle while you're like kind of moving around in cover, jumping, whatnot. The only assist that I have on throughout this like entire settings video is sprint assist, so that I can tactical sprint immediately. So that way it makes it so that there's less dead slides. Because the second that I start moving, I'm already in full tactical sprint, or at least a sprint, so that I do not get dead slides. I haven't gotten a dead slide in so long. You can definitely get away with just using on if you don't want to be constantly in a tactical sprint, because that also does help with the dead slides. But I would make sure to have your sprint assist delay at 0, have sideways and backwards on, so you're always moving quicker and getting into your sprints faster. But now, like I said, for all the other assists, I wouldn't have them on. They're just going to end up getting you killed. Crouching is just going to make you crouch in a gunfight. You're going to be shooting their legs. All of these are pretty bad, to be honest. Corner slicing, I guess I just never really had a reason to shut this off. But so corner slicing, as shown on screen, is whenever you get up to a corner and you kind of like peek it to the side so you show less of your body. It doesn't really do anything because it does curve your body out, so you do show about the same amount. But I mean, there's no reason to shut it off. I haven't had a reason to. But now for my sliding and diving behavior, I use hybrid. Hybrid shuts off auto delay. If you're using tap to slide, I think it's a 500 millisecond delay for tap to slide. But a hybrid, it's almost instant. The only thing holding you back is like latency. So I would definitely use hybrid. If you don't know what hybrid does, it makes it so when you tap your right joystick, it checks whether you're holding down your sprint button or not. If you're holding down your sprint button and you tap your right joystick, then it makes you dive. And then if you tap it and you're not holding down your left joystick, then it makes you slide. Yeah, it actually says right here, tap only to slide, tap while holding sprint input to dive. So that's what hybrid does. It does shut off the delay though. Slide only is also a good option because diving isn't too helpful, but I mean, I would just rather have it there than not, you know what I mean? Hybrid does take a bit of learning though. Took me about a week or two, but it's 100% worth it. It makes your movement so much more smooth. Just trust me when you use it. But now for parachute automatic behavior, I have this on off because like I said, I just don't like the game doing stuff for me because there's going to be sometimes I just want to get to the ground as quick as possible and pull my parachute last second, and this is just not going to let me do that. As the player, you want everything to be in your control. You don't want anything to be automatic or done for you besides like sprinting. There's no downside to that. But yeah, for the rest, it's not too big of a deal. Movement advanced settings, I toggle the defaults. Make sure that you have sprinting door bash on. But yeah, I'm moving on to combat, the final category in the controller. My aim down side is obviously hold. Most of this is pretty just like obvious stuff. Make sure your armor plate behavior is on apply all at once. I know that this wasn't default in MW2, 3, and all the Warzones before that. But in BO6, I think they did make it default. If you still have it on apply one, though, definitely put it on apply all. Apply all is so much better. It makes it so there's not like a delay in putting on your plates. It makes it quicker. It is so much more convenient. Then C4 detonation doesn't really matter. Equipment behavior. I mean, yeah, none of this really matters. Combat advanced settings. Yeah. The only thing that I've changed here is akimbo behavior. None of this really matters though. But now moving on to audio settings. But first off, master game volume. A lot of people don't know that you can actually press show more and shut off the gameplay music, which This is actually a little bit confusing. Gameplay music is actually the music in the lobby, and then cinematic music is music that happens in the game. So what cinematic music is whenever you get into a fight, like kind of drums start playing, and it makes it harder to hear. So I would definitely have this at 0. Effects are like footsteps and whatnot. So I have this at 100. Dialogue, you can also just put this on 0. This is just like character, what the characters say, like Terminator or Beavis and Butthead. So this one doesn't really matter. I just kind of have it at 50 just in case I need to hear it, but the majority of the time, I would say 0 is the best. I think actually the reason why I have this on 50 is because if you remember back in MW2 and MW3, there were like these dogs, and whenever an enemy was within 15 meters of you, they would bark, which is why I think I actually turned this on. I'm pretty sure I had this off a while ago, but I just kind of have it at 50 now. There's no reason not to. The operator audio isn't too overgoing in the game, but you can definitely have this at 0. But now the output doesn't really matter. And by the way, I do not use Art as War, so my audio settings actually do matter. A lot of people give like audio settings videos and they use Art as War, so they have like a third-party software doing the audio settings for them. So the in-game ones don't really matter, which just doesn't make sense. But I don't use Art as War. I use purely the game settings. Speaker output, I don't have any speakers, so it doesn't matter. But in my opinion, advanced headphone mode isn't good, and neither is the paid version. It makes it so that it will send the audio. It tries to be more precise, but what it ends up doing is it makes the footsteps way quieter. Definitely not worth it. I would not spend the $20 on it to get the full configuration, and definitely do not turn the default version on. For the audio mix, though, I use Sucker Punch, so I can hear within 30 meters louder than usual, but farther out than 30 meters is a lot quieter, which I find to be good because I realistically don't need to hear anything beyond 30 meters. It's not really too important to me. I would say audio is most important in close range gunfights when you need to hear where your opponents are, where they're going, or whether they're moving. So I use Sucker Punch because it prioritizes short range audio. Another good one though is Treyarch Mix. That is also a pretty good one, but Sucker Punch is the best in my opinion. But I'm moving on to mono audio. This is pointless. It makes it so directional audio goes away. The same audio that goes into your left will play in your right. Like it just plays all the audio in both your ears. No reason for it. Now, none of those other settings really matter, like mute game and minimize, mute lessons, music. Actually, I should turn that on. I just have word track volume on 0, but I should definitely have that on. If you're a content creator, I definitely have that on. But now the next setting that actually does matter is reduce tintiness sound. This makes it so flash grenades give you less noise, if that makes sense. You know the ringing when you get hit with a flashbang? It tones it down so you can hear where the enemies are better. Because especially with the recent flashbang buff, so many more people are using it, so this setting is very helpful. Now hit marker preset doesn't really matter. This is just visual. It's kind of just like the hit marker sound effects. Anyways, most of interface now doesn't really matter. I mean, skip, okay, yeah, most of this doesn't matter. Gameplay tips, don't know why this is on. This is something really weird about gameplay tips. It'll just randomly turn it on for me. This doesn't really have anything to do with the setting video, but I don't know why, but gameplay tips just keeps on turning on for me, bro. I genuinely don't understand why. I would probably just have that off. Like I said, none of these really matter besides gameplay HUD. If you go to HUD bounds, then you can shorten your HUD. So now my minimap is like in this corner as shown on screen. It's just like closer to the middle of my screen. So I have to move my eyes less to be able to see what is on my screen and the information available to me. So definitely have your HUD bound like this. If you don't want to, that's fine. And for some like content creators, it is better if you have them further out just so it makes better room for your face cam and all that. But I have it like this for the sake of seeing things quicker. But yeah, moving on. There's one other setting that matters, which is minimap shape. Have this on square because square, obviously for a circle doesn't have the corners square does. So the square lets you see more of your minimap. It's not too much more, but again, it could help. It could help. You never know. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching the settings video. By the way, we do go live every day 5 to 9, so be sure to go check that out. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow.